I'm very pleased to welcome you to the February 11th hearing of the Assembly Select Committee on the California Clean Energy Economy, where we'll be examining the topic of energy efficiency in existing buildings. First of all, I'd like to thank all of you for being here, particularly the speakers, and this is a very exciting and timely hearing. A couple of house cleaning matters to address before we begin. Copies of the agenda and background materials are in the back of the hearing room. This hearing is televised and is also being live streamed on the Cal channel, and I'm TiVoing at home. It'll be available in the Cal channel archives after the hearing for those who cannot attend or watch today. So let's get started. In his 2015 inaugural address, the governor set ambitious goals for increasing from 1/3 to 50% of our electricity derived from renewable energy, reducing today's petroleum use in cars by 50%, and doubling the efficiency of existing buildings and making heating fuels cleaner. This hearing will be focused on the third pillar of these goals, that is, increasing the efficiency of existing buildings, and my hope is that we'll address the following questions. How effective are our energy efficiency programs? What, if anything, are we leaving on the table? Are we not getting done that we should be looking at? How can we make sound policy decisions that are effective, comprehensive, and cutting edge? Because the whole point of California doing what it's doing is to show the rest of the country and the rest of the world what is the best way to approach these problems. And then, is doubling the efficiency of existing buildings the right goal? Do computer codes accurately predict the effectiveness of energy efficiency measures? That's very important. We're basing a lot of our policy on these computer codes, and have they been normalized properly to real data? While we have made some progress in certain areas of energy efficiency, as a state, we have not agreed on the best approach, and we have yet to explore other problems such as HVAC modeling and other things that we'll be hearing from our speakers today. My goal with this hearing is to get an overview of what California has done, what we can do to move forward in the future, and achieve or exceed our energy efficiency goals. In order to be the best in energy efficiency, we must ensure we've explored all options to make California the most forward-thinking and effective state. I see this hearing and any issues it raises as an opportunity to learn and explore different and better ways of achieving our goals. I'd like to introduce my staffer, Miranda Flores, who put this all together and has done a great job writing my script as well as putting it all together. So thank you very much, Miranda. And then a fellow Caltecher. I postdoced at Caltech about 10 or 15 years before he went there as an undergraduate, J.R. Bernalti, who's on the Select Committee as well as serving with me on Utilities and Commerce. And it's just nice to have another Caltech person here, in addition to one of my staffers who's also a Caltech graduate. So thank you for being here, Jay. My pleasure. With that, let me introduce the first panelist. The first panelist is Annette Beitel. Excuse me. Annette has over 15 years of experience providing legal, regulatory, procurement, and management support to energy efficiency and renewable energy programs. You can come up, Annette, both in California and the Midwest as well as internationally. She facilitates the California Technical Forum discussions and helps drive that group to consensus decisions, and you'll sit right there. The sergeant can actually, oh, you're going to sit there to work the computer? Okay, that's fine. Yeah, you can sit there if you'd like. So anyway, the California Technical Forum is trying to come up, as she will tell you, with better ways to calculate what our energy efficiency is and what methods work best. I'm also hoping to learn what California should be prepared to do in the future to improve energy efficiency based on our state's past actions. So, Annette, please go forward.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Assemblyman Quirk, for having me here to speak today. I'm excited to be here. I was asked to share a little bit about the past successes in California, as well as talk about what can be done in California to get even greater success. So my first couple of slides are just going through information that almost feels like a cliche because California...
Just a second.
Yeah.
You really need to speak into the microphone.
Sorry.
Or the TV won't pick you up.
Okay.
So don't worry about looking at the audience. Just speak into the microphones. And if you're not hearing or on the microphone in the audience, let me know. Oh, excuse me. I didn't have my microphone on. If you're not hearing or in the audience, let me know. But Annette, you'll just have to speak directly into the microphones, and that means you won't get a chance to look at the audience.
Okay.
But
I'll direct my remarks too.
all right. Direct into the microphone, then everybody can hear it.
Okay, great.
Good.
Thank you. So my first couple slides are about successes to date in California, which feel almost like a cliche because they're so oft repeated nationally and internationally. California really has been a leader around the world. So the efficiency in California since the 1970s has led to avoiding 30 large power plants, with many more expected to be avoided in the next decade. Because of efficiency, about a third of the state's electricity needs have been met as of 2013, and efficiency programs have resulted in 30 million metric tons of CO2 pollution less than otherwise would have occurred. In addition, 3 million low-income households have been served since 2003. Efficiency also leads not only to cost savings and environmental benefits, but it also is a driver of jobs. And so efficiency jobs have grown 15% in the past from 2002 to 2012, compared to 2% nationwide job growth on average. And efficiency programs have saved $12 billion after costs since 2003. So there are, despite California's role as a leader for the past 30 years, there are many areas where California can do better. And so my next couple of slides just provide a couple of suggestions about how California can improve. So number one, there are a number of measures that are very common in other jurisdictions and producing significant amounts of savings that are not currently approved or widely adopted in California. Two examples are a wide range of LEDs. I mean, obviously, California does have LED deployment, but not for as many technologies as elsewhere in retrocommissioning, which used to be a program offering in California and is no longer a program offering. So just to illustrate how in other jurisdictions these technologies have produced, are producing currently lots of savings. In the ComEd service territory in northern Illinois, 80% of the savings in the commercial industrial portfolio, 23%, come from LEDs versus 6% from CFLs. So 4 times more savings from LEDs than CFLs in the commercial industrial portfolio. And 4% of the savings come from the retrocommissioning program, which gets at low-cost measures and operational measures. The 4% would be much, much higher if there were not budget caps, for this particular utility that prevent capturing all cost-effective.
Commonwealth Edison in Massachusetts? Or?
No, ComEd in northern Illinois.
Northern Illinois, okay.
So it covers the top half of Illinois, including Chicago. A second area that the legislature has helped move along as a result of AB 802 is capturing existing savings in buildings due to measures that were installed many, many years ago. And because of the nature of the measures, they're not going to be replaced absent some program intervention. And the policy in California recently, until AB 802, made it difficult for some of these measures, such as boilers, such as windows, especially in hard-to-reach customer groups, from actually getting addressed and being replaced. So on the boiler example, there was a program that was funded through ARA funds with the San Francisco Department of Environment, and there were 177 boilers that were replaced, and 21 of them had been installed at the turn of the century, the last century, and then another 77% were still in operation after many, many years after their expected useful life. Similarly, Bayren, with external funding, not utility funding, upgraded 57 multifamily dwellings in the Bay Area, and every single one of them had single-pane aluminum windows, and on average they were 60 years old, and they were able to upgrade them and would not under the prior policy. So it's exciting that there's now an opportunity to carefully start going after the savings in existing buildings due to equipment that is old and can be replaced essentially indefinitely, and now that equipment can be addressed. Another area where California can really move forward is to address plug load. So based on information from the EIA, it's the fastest growing energy segment in the residential sector. And currently there are two initiatives that have been reviewed by CalTF over the course of about a year and a half. And we're still waiting for regulatory approval. So we're hoping that the initiative I'm about to talk about will speed regulatory approval of these really important and cutting-edge measures. Another area that can lead to increased savings is basically building analytics. And so the next couple slides are just a couple slides about how these building analytic tools that are offered by a number of providers can help identify savings much lower cost, much more rapidly, and really in a much more targeted way. And this opportunity has not existed previously, and it's really new, meaning the past couple of years. So this is one study that was done using a tool that First Fuel has developed, and it was a suite of buildings that is owned by the GSA. And in this particular study, the finding was that 72% of the savings potential existed in the top 7 buildings. So this helped really target where efforts would be most cost effective. With the same set of buildings, this tool helped identify the percentage of savings that comes from the retrofit measures versus the low cost and operational measures that would be covered by a retrocommissioning program. And 50% of the savings actually came from the low cost and no cost operational changes. And so it's important that California allow these types of initiatives to move forward. The Assemblyman talked about the importance of model validation and not trusting black boxes. In this particular case, 100 DoD buildings were tested with this tool, just using the black box software. And then an independent auditor went in and did an on-site audit of 16 of those buildings over 11 different sites, different climate zones, and found that the results of this black box software tool were highly validated by the level 2 ASHRAE audit that was done by an independent auditor on a representative sample of buildings. So obviously, it's really important to validate these tools, but the validation is occurring, and at least in this particular instance, looking like it's affirming the savings. This third slide, again, just illustrates the power of these analytic tools. So this slide is basically showing that there can be a lot of potential in mid-sized buildings. Previously, without these analytic tools, there'd be a tendency to try and maximize efforts by going to large buildings and buildings that had a high energy use intensity. But that's not necessarily a good proxy for where is there the most potential. And you would think a big building would, by nature of its size, produce more potential. This study shows that that's not necessarily the case. There was a press release issued last week, and that basically said that LADWP and several California utilities are adopting these tools. And at least LADWP's experience was that using these tools reduced their costs associated with identifying potential by 80%, and led to much increased customer satisfaction because it was less intrusive for the customer. And so they felt like the results were more refined, less intrusive, and they were happier with using these building analytic tools compared to traditional audits. So this is going to be an exploding area for trying to identify and capture potential. So this is a slide that illustrates the importance of not forgetting about low and low mid income customers. And so basically the dots on this slide represent customers who are who have purchased efficient equipment using utility incentives. This is actually from Chicago. It's not from California. And so the high density of dots are in the neighborhoods with the census tracts that have high income, and the very sparse dots are the census tracts where the lower income customers live. And so this just illustrates that even though California has done heroic efforts in trying to fairly reach low and moderate income customers through CARE, through REACH, through the Energy Assistance Program, it's really important as new technologies emerge to continue ensuring that we think about making sure they're getting into low income customers, and they will not take them through traditional programs. So that's just a reminder to not forget about these important customers if we want to capture potential, particularly given that the building stock tends to be, very old and not updated, and there tends to be a lot of potential. I'm now going to talk about a new initiative that is addressing technical information on a statewide basis in California. And the Technical Forum is a group that was modeled on a regional organization in the Pacific Northwest, the Northwest Regional Technical Forum, and it was in response to the desire of a number of key stakeholders in California who are listed on the next slide to work on technical issues in a way that was much more statewide, transparent, collaborative, and really technically based, recognizing that there was a need there. So it's been up and running for a year and a half. The work that's been produced is posted on a website, the CalTF website, and there's been a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of participation, both in-state, out-of-state, and also, from national organizations. So the organizations that participate and support this initiative are on the slide here. It includes the IOUs, the POUs, environmental groups, a ratepayer advocate. So it's been a very broad-based organization, and we're excited to have all the support. The key initiative that we're currently working on is producing a reference manual that consolidates all of the technical information on the energy efficiency measures in the state, which up until now has not been in a single repository, and a lot of the information supporting the values has been created through engineering models that are hard to really, that are black boxes essentially. And so this is an attempt to create a best-in-class repository through a public process and through approaches that will lead hopefully to more transparent and more accurate savings. And this initiative has been supported not only by the statewide entities on the previous slide, but also has gotten the interest of DOE and several of the labs outside of California, particularly NREL and Boulder, but as well as PNNL. So very quickly, just a couple of other areas where California can get more bang for its buck. As California spends $40 million each year of its $1 billion budget that exists on EM&V evaluation. And currently the evaluations in California get produced years after the programs are over, which limits their usefulness in terms of cross-validating the engineering assumptions with actual data. And there are other jurisdictions, such as Illinois, where the evaluations come within 6 to 8 months after the end of the program year, and they're very much used to refine energy efficiency measure, technical information, savings estimates, as well as inform improved program design. And this is a really big missed opportunity for California, so I'm hoping this changes. Just very quickly, a reminder that efficiency is not just about meeting energy needs, it's also about jobs, and it's important to have, really the jobs benefit all of Californians. So in conclusion, some areas where California can achieve greater savings are making sure that new technologies are getting into the market rapidly, that they're then validated by data once they've been placed into the market based on engineering equations or engineering assumptions. It's going to be much cheaper to do that if there's statewide and regional coordination and collaboration instead of having lots of different entities trying to do things without coordinating, which is what had happened prior to the CalTF. And then just a reminder that the fruits of energy efficiency need to be fairly distributed to all Californians, and not just those that seem to have the easiest time participating in programs. So thank you. That concludes my remarks.
Thank you. We have two members who've just arrived. Assemblymember Richard Bloom, who is chair of the committee that develops the budget for the cap and trade program and other energy-related programs in the state, including the CPUC, the CEC, et cetera. And would you like to say something? All right. And then Assemblymember Doss Williams, who's chair of the Natural Resources Committee that looks at many energy issues as well. Did you want to say something? No. Okay.
Can we ask questions now? Or
now's the time to start asking questions. You can have the first one.
Well, I was, of course, I always love to see my own bill in presentation, so that's great. That's very nice. But I wanted to ask you about the power strip issue. Is there more work to be done on that, or is that just an example of the state sort of impeding promulgation of a technology?
Well, there's going to be more. There is more work to be done to really refine what the savings are, and it's really balancing letting a technology get into the market with recognizing that the savings estimates, there may be engineering estimates, or based on limited studies, are going to be imperfect, and you really need to keep testing to see what the actual savings are. So it's really where do you strike that balance, and the commission.
And the logic is just that it's. Whatever it is, it's going to be better than what we got.
Right. I mean, you can always collect more data. So at some point you have to say we have enough to go on. We're going to let it into the market, and then we're going to collect more data, through the program.
And these are commercial scale power strips like we have in our homes.
They're commercial. They're advanced power strips that are more sophisticated and produce greater savings. And the advanced power strips exist both for residential customers as well as commercial customers.
And what's the holdup?
A perception of you that more data is needed before the measures can go into the market.
And what regulatory agency is that perception coming from?
I will let my colleagues speak later. It's the regulated entity. I mean, the regulator of the utilities is the agency.
Great.
So,
thank you.
Thank you.
Questions from Assemblymember Bloom or Obernolte? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I was interested in the slide that you presented on the results of current programs on things like boiler retrofits and reducing plug load. And I was struck by the fact that if you're going to construct a metric to figure out how cost efficient we're being in terms of financing these retrofits, how some of these, for example, the boiler retrofits, those save thermal energy, and some reducing plug load saves electrical energy, and some, the window retrofits, would save presumably both. You'd save electrical energy in the summer and thermal energy in the winter, presuming that you're heating with natural gas. So I was wondering, how do you balance those two? Because in thinking about it, it didn't seem like a straightforward thing to do.
So basically, the metric that's used in California primarily is the total resource cost test. So it's a cost-benefit test, and it includes avoided costs both for electricity and gas. And so it's structured in a way that allows both, both to be considered in determining cost effectiveness.
Okay, so you are what you're using as the basis for the metric is the cost of the energy that's saved, the avoided cost. So if we have a situation, as we currently do, where the cost of oil is diminishing, that means that suddenly electrical savings are prioritized more than thermal savings. Is that right?
Absolutely.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It's a huge issue. So a lot of the traditional residential gas measures are not currently cost effective. That is absolutely the case. And the other issue is that standards, particularly in California but nationwide, have really increased. So the the products that you buy are fairly efficient. So it makes it very hard for residential gas measures to be cost effective.
So what's the rationale behind using avoided cost over something like you can figure out equivalent greenhouse gases emitted or tons of carbon dioxide reduced or something like that? Why do it this way?
Well, traditionally, the programs have been funded through utilities. And so the argument is that the savings are what really matter, the savings on traditional utility fuel sources. But now that carbon is becoming very important to California, that would be a policy decision for California to make, is should that be a greater driver.
Interesting. Thank you.
Okay. Can the people in the room, is the microphone picking it up? No. Okay, so just try and talk directly. I don't have my microphone on. All right. Is the Annette being picked up on the microphone? Yes. Okay. I'm not if I don't have it on. So next question from me. So there's $40 million spent. Most of the studies, with one exception, seem to rely primarily on engineering estimates. As a matter of fact, I've seen studies that actually throw out the real data saying, oh, it must be wrong because it doesn't agree with the engineering estimate. And I've only seen one CPUC study on house retrofits that actually looks at the data. What is your experience in this area?
So a lot of the studies traditionally have focused the bulk of the money on determining free ridership and using engineering estimates. And I think that nationally there's a movement away from that for many reasons. And, and one key reason is the recognition that energy estimates can, for a variety of reasons, be off. And so I think traditionally what California has seen has been fairly true of other jurisdictions, but I think that's changing. And the draft EM&V guidelines for the Clean Power Plan that were released on October 23rd really emphasize the importance of replacing these values with real data. So that's recognized nationally. There's an effort nationally, and there's an effort across the country to move more towards looking at real data, not just engineering estimates.
Great. She mentioned free riders. That's the people who would have made changes anyway.
Yes.
And so how much are we paying people to do things that they would have done anyway?
That's the question.
All right. And I don't have that answer. Do you?
That's what the evaluators are trying to figure out.
Okay.
So.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Okay.
And we'll go on to the next panel.
Where do you want
want us to
also
sit?
going to be using the computer?
I don't have
All right, then
slides.
just sit over there.
Okay.
And Mary Ann, if you could also come up, Mary Ann, yes. And will you be sitting by the computer? Or?
Yes.
Okay, so you can sit by the computer and just use your. You can sit by the computer and just go ahead, and then